Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on July 17th, 2021 at approximately 3:27 p.m. PST. Well, we start off the day rough today. Kind of an annoyance, really, when you think about it. But of all the things for me to lose to have die, the coffee pot my father had, coffee urn my father had for 15, 20 years prior to my getting it. Okay, when he passed away back in 2016, I was given his coffee pot, his coffee urn. Well, unfortunately, it has finally died. Now, that is depressing right from the get-go, but I'll just go out and find another one at this point. It certainly won't be his old one, but then I don't even know where I'm going to find what I'm looking for. That being said, it's just one of those minor little glitches. Overall, today has not been too terribly bad. Got a whole pile of things I really should do something about, but I've been kind of hiding from the world, I think, today. So, with that in mind, now here's the really frustrating thing I find. I had a call from somebody for the longest time, like for the last week or so, complaining that they felt their house was haunted by a number of evil entities. However, whenever they were asked about it, okay, or they tried to arrange something, they tried arranging something so I could come and talk to them about it, and they came up with every reason in the book to postpone it. Now, let me ask you this. If you are one of these people that think your house is haunted, and you think that whatever is in it is trying to hurt you, are you going to keep postponing it to get somebody to come in and take a look at it? Or, or what's the story? Like, from your standpoint, if you feel you're in danger, okay, are you going to sit back and wait for something to happen, wait for a right time to deal with it, or are you going to deal with it right off? Now, from my experience, if you keep postponing it, it's not as bad as what it's being made out to be. It's kind of like if you feel there's an intruder in your house, you don't wait until the intruder leaves. You phone the police and you go, I think I've got an intruder in my house. Okay, and get the police to come and take a look at it, or some other security individual. You don't wait until they go away or see if they get better. Okay, if you're constantly being stolen from, you don't wait for the person to get bored and quit stealing from you. You turn around and go and get help where possible. Now, I sort of came to the conclusion that because this person keeps putting it off, it is likely it's not as bad as what they're making it out to be. I would love to hear your comments on what you take it as. Okay, I mean, unfortunately, I've got no way to work with it. But, if the person will not meet to talk about the problem, I can't do anything about it anyway. But I'd love to hear your comments on it. Therefore, drop me a line at one of the contacts point below this video and let me know, or reply to this video itself. This is a live recording, meaning when I get done with this video, I'll double check, make sure I got the date right, and then carry on. But like I said, the reality of life is this. When we redirect the energy in our own home, when we get the assistance of other people where we're falling short, we can make this world a better world for everybody. Pretty much for everybody. And I keep reiterating this, but that's because I keep getting comments from people that, well, that doesn't apply to me. Well, there's a lot of people it doesn't apply to. There are always exceptions. Like when I talk about people consistently and habitually beating the heck out of each other and then apologizing, every married couple on the planet doesn't do that. Okay, they just don't. And when I make a comment like that, it is applying to the person or people that are doing that. If your marriage is running fine, then you're not one of the people that's beating the heck out of the other one and blaming them for it. Okay, now the really annoying thing, and before I tell you that, just one quick note. I'd love to see a thumbs up on this video, and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more information coming out. Don't forget to ring the alert bell on just to the right of the subscribe button. Okay, that way you'll see when they come up. Now, here's the thing I discovered just about 5 minutes before I came in to do the video today. I've been telling people for years that it felt to me like the average IQ of people, the average intelligence quotients of people, was dropping. Well, roughly 10 years ago, the average IQ, from my understanding of standard people, was listed at between 100 to 120. Okay, or maybe 100, 100 to 130 being average IQ. I just saw a post today from, I believe, the same people where the average IQ has now, 10 years later, been listed at an average of 85 to 115. This is roughly a 1.5% drop per year for the last 10 years. Okay, now I don't know about you, but to me this means that IQs are dropping. This means people are not, the evolution of technology, the birth of the computer age, and the growth of technology has clearly had a negative impact, in my opinion, on people's intelligence. People are not thinking things through. They aren't communicating the same way. You've still got communication. Even without the computer, there are still people to talk to. Okay? And with society opening up, now this is what does not make sense to me. If you run a business and you're not paying your staff enough so they can live in your area on one income, then frankly you're going to lose staff, because most people will not work 2 or 3 jobs for very long. You will get the occasional one. I know of some people that have had 4 and 5 jobs at a time. Of course, I always wondered if that was a question of not, it wasn't a necessity of getting 4 or 5 jobs. It was a question of them requiring multiple different ways of expressing themselves, of expressing part of themselves, so they took on multiple jobs that could mesh with each other in time schedules. Okay, now, you do get those people. Myself, I'm much happier with only one stable job, one stable income where it's regular as clockwork. Which is really bad when you think about it, but this is why I became reclusive. I even found out this morning that the whole concept of leaving where I am being working in my office, in my house, and staying in a very small area. Okay, turns out I've become a lot more reclusive than what I thought I was. Okay, so of course when people talk about, oh, I want to travel around the world and I can't wait for all the borders to open, it doesn't have a lot of bearing on me, simply because of one little aspect. I'm finding I leave the house less and less. I've got 3 places I go, and one of them I've been considering dropping because of one little issue. I don't like going out. Okay, there's one restaurant I go to, there's one park I go to, okay, and I go to primarily one grocery store. That's the one I'm thinking of possibly pulling the plug on, because that same grocery store will deliver if you pay a fee for it. And realistically, if it fits inside my budget, that extra little fee to put somebody else to work isn't going to bother me a whole lot. Okay, but it does make it easier for me to cope with life. And yes, this is why I tell people that I am very much reclusive. Okay, if you ever run into me in person, the odds are I will be talking to you in the same way I do now. You'll find I backtrack on things I say, as in I'll say, oh, I can't do that. Well, I could do that, but I choose not to. Okay. There are many times I will do that, and that's why I call this a live recording, because I don't edit any of that out. If I stumble, if I leave a little bit of dead air, if I make a miscalculation on something I'm saying, I don't edit it out. It is what it is. Okay, now, the thing is, with billing myself as a spiritual guide, almost every tool I offer people are the tools I personally am using to this day to alter the way the energy in my world is working. Now, the first tool that I will tell you, in case you're just joining me, is, and you can't see the whole thing, but there's a wood sign right over here. And what that wood sign says is, I am worth it. Take those 4 words, put them on your fridge. Okay, they are the most powerful combination of 4 words in the spoken language that I've come across this lifetime. Okay, you don't have to believe it works. Write it down, put it on your fridge, and see what happens to your outlook as you read that every time when you go into the kitchen. Now, understand, the reason I say the fridge is because, in my experience, the fridge is the one place that everybody going into a house, whether they are visiting, whether they live there or not, the one thing that virtually everybody does is they read whatever's on the fridge. Okay, this is one of the reasons why parents have a tendency of putting their kids' artwork on the fridge. See, even if the only thing on the fridge is the emblem, i.e. GE or whoever makes fridges nowadays, I really don't know. But even if that's all that's there, people will read it. But by putting it up there, that constant repetition of looking at that sign will help alter the way your brain is thinking. This is one of the reasons why I keep repeating myself regarding those 4 words. Okay, now, when you take a look at the way your world is, that your personal world is going, take yourself out of the whole circle and just look at you. This is where narcissists would really do well, because in this case, this statement applies directly to everybody's view of themselves. Okay, take a look at the way your world is working. Forget the kids, forget the other half, forget the friends and the co-workers. Just look at you. Are you content with your life? Are you content with the way your world is working? Not, are you making other people happy? Years ago, when I was living in the bar, and I do mean that quite literally, I was killing a 26er a night at the bar without even blinking. But I was asked by a chap one day he wanted to know, he goes, look, he says, Keith, and bear in mind, this was 30 years ago. Okay. He goes, Keith, he says, I've been watching you, I've been watching you a lot, I've been talking to you a lot, and I'm just trying to piece down the way you think. He goes, if you had, when it comes to music, what is the music you personally would like? Not what anybody else likes, not what's common, but if you had the choice of putting on the music that you desire, that you enjoy, what would you watch? What would you listen to? Now, he had come over to my place along with another friend, after we had been drinking for the night. And he says, look, I'm just curious, just put on whatever music you personally enjoy. So I went, okay. And I kid you not, I literally picked up a tape by Olivia Newton-John, and I popped it in the cassette. Okay. Now, 30 years ago, cassette was state of the art. I'm sure of it. Anyway, he sat there and he said he was dumbfounded. He figured because I enjoy science fiction, because I enjoy role-playing, Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of thing, and because I enjoy comics, he said he was fully expecting hard rock or heavy metal. He said, then the phrase he used was, I was not expecting at all you to enjoy listening to Miss Purity. Now, that was his term for Olivia Newton-John. Okay, in my opinion at that time, she was the only artist I would have gone to a concert to listen to. Okay, and I'm not one, even then I wasn't really one for crowds, but at the time I was living in the bar, so you kind of got used to crowds being there. Of course, I was blitzed half the time, so that always helped. Actually, in all fairness, it really didn't. The misunderstanding from people is, there's lots of people that go, I drink to forget it, to cope. Well, the reality behind too much in the way of alcohol is it doesn't help with coping. Okay, ask yourself this. If you're a drinker, or if you know somebody that does drink heavily, does their coping method work Or do they get more aggressive, more defensive, more off kilter? Because what alcohol does, in my experience, and I'm not a doctor by any functional stretch, okay, but what I have seen is when you drink too much, what happens is you end up is that your coping mechanisms, your ability to control how you're behaving, goes out the window. Okay, which means your coping mechanisms, your self-control, your reactions get real screwy. And needless to say, the one obvious issue where it comes to alcohol is it really messes up your coordination, both in walking and speech most of the time. Now, half the time I trip over my own words, so I keep questioning, did I drink so much that I can't speak properly? Well, I don't know. I couldn't speak properly before, so what the heck? But what I do know is alcohol itself does not actually help people cope. If it helped people cope, then you wouldn't have the three types of people that I've seen. Okay, you've got your violent people, you've got your calm people, and you've got your giddy people. Put all three without alcohol in the same room, and they'll all behave in a self-controlled fashion. However, add alcohol. The two most common types are on either end. The violent individual, you add alcohol, his self-control collapses, now he lashes out, he or she lashes out at everybody. Okay, that's your violent drunk. Okay, or your angry drunk, if you will. Then you've got the ones that are normally really, they would like to be, and they would like to be the life of the party, but they just, when they don't have alcohol, their own senses, their own sense of self-control stays in place, and they behave normally. But the moment you add alcohol, and I am referring to too much alcohol for their system, what happens is all of a sudden you take that self-controlled, very demure individual, and they end up on the table dancing, or laughing at everything available. Now, I certainly have nothing against people laughing. God knows I'd like to be able to do it more often, but that seems to be a bit of a stretch in my case. And I'm still working on why. But you get the second type that's the giddy person, the person that is the life of the party. Add alcohol, and all of a sudden their ability to stay hidden in the shadows, to not draw attention to themselves, collapses, and the natural instinct to be making other people happy all of a sudden skyrockets. And then you've got the third type of people, and these are the extremely rare ones. And in all fairness, this is what I was when I was drinking heavily, where the only thing the alcohol actually does is screws up your coordination and your ability to speak. For me, my outlook on life, my personality, the way I treated people, didn't change at all. Okay, I didn't like the way people behaved to start with. The alcohol didn't make it any better. Okay, I remember one day I was actually drinking with a group of people, and this one girl that we were drinking rather heavily with, she invited me and one other chap over to her place to continue drinking. So we went, okay, great. We got in her car. Stupid move. We'd all been drinking. Right. Got in her car, went back to her place. Well, halfway there, she's sitting in the driver's seat. I was in the passenger seat, and the other guy was in the back seat. Of course, we were all drunk, and like I said, real stupid move. But she turns and looks at me, and she goes, just because we're going back to my place doesn't mean I'm going to crawl into bed with you. And I looked at her and I says, what makes you think I was even interested in going to bed with you? The reality is, you said there was alcohol over there. Seemed like the place to go. Right. Now, whether that was the right thing to say or the wrong thing to say, it was certainly the honest thing to say. Right. So, we went back to her place. Bad idea in her case. Because we went back to her place. She ended up going to bed and passing out. The guy that came over with us, him and I sat there and finished off her 2 or 3 bottles that she had. I mean, she did bring us over to drink, so we did. Not necessarily bright. Like I said, I have not always walked, I've always stayed functionally in focus, but I'm not perfect by any functional stretch. But when she got up in the morning, she looked at us, and this is where it got scary. She looks at us and goes, "How did we get home?" Now, bear in mind, she was driving a GLC, like a subcompact hatchback. And she looks at us and she goes, "How did we get home?" I says, "Well, realistically, you drove." I says, "Technically, it's questionable whether you drove, but you did stay within the lines." Of course, being a hatchback and a subcompact, you had a lot of room to play with. Okay, but the reality was, we got carried away, and there's nothing wrong with getting carried away drinking, but I will tell you. Excuse me. Hate that. Didn't have time to do anything about that, so that's okay. I will tell you, if you're drinking, couple of major things. Now, I was lucky. Okay, I got into a car, stupid, absolutely ridiculous move. Got in a car with somebody that had been drinking. I got home, all three of us got home safe. By the time we left her place, right, the next morning, we were all sober. Of course, the guy I was there with, me and the two of us ended up drinking a lot together. We were absolutely stone cold sober. We had no sleep, but we were absolutely stone cold sober. Stupid move. If you're going out and you're going to have a party, absolutely enjoy yourself as much as you feel that you desire to. But, and I cannot stress this enough, the fact that I got away lucky, and that was one of the few times I actually got into a car with a drinker. Okay, most of the time it was either I'd walk home, and I'll use that term loosely, or I would grab a cab and get them to drive me home. Okay, but the fact I got out of it lucky and alive does not make it a smart move. Okay, if you're going out to drink, go out, arrange for a way to get home, preferably with a licensed driver. Okay, as in a cab, either with a cab or take a designated driver, as in a friend that is not going to be drinking an ounce of alcohol. Not a thing. Okay, that's up to you how you do it, but include it in your cost of going out. Now, I did not always do things the right way. I tell people, be careful when you're talking to people. Yes, be honest with them, but please talk to somebody about diplomacy, because I'm not the one to talk to. Okay? If somebody asks me a question, I'll give you an answer, and if you like it, that's great, and if you don't, that's unfortunate, but at least I'll be honest. Okay? The problem I have is when we're talking about people that claim to be spiritual guides. Absolutely. If you're following somebody, whether it happens to be a pastor or a rabbi or the head of a coven or anybody else, whoever is handing you the guidelines, make absolutely certain they're following them. Okay. Now, see, the reason I said I'm not perfect is I was in grade 10, and a friend of mine, there was a whole party set up to go. Okay. Now, as it turned out, I didn't go to parties at all when I was in grade 10. I barely left the house when I was in grade 10, aside from go to school. But this one kid, I told her flat out, do not get into a car with somebody that's been drinking. She didn't believe me. Okay, she got into the car with two people that had been drinking. The driver and the other one were absolutely bombed. They got into a car accident. They walked away virtually unscathed. We buried my friend. Okay. And then I went and did this silly thing when I'm, in my early 20s. Got into a car with a drunk driver. Now the reality is we didn't have an accident, and I got away lucky. I got away alive. Not a good gauge. Okay. But I don't do that now at all. Of course, I've had my time of being an idiot. At least I hope. I still do stupid things. But if you're following somebody that's claiming to be a spiritual guide, make certain they're following the guidelines that they're telling you to live by. If they're telling you the material world doesn't matter, okay, number one, you might want to reconsider what they're looking at, because like it or not, like, I don't know about you, but I prefer having a roof over my head with the lights on. Okay, I don't require all the bells and trinkets. Okay, there's only one belle I'm actually interested in, and she happens to be my current girlfriend. So, that said, the material world is not a critical factor to me, but it is something you have to realize does matter in today's world. But if somebody's saying the material world doesn't matter, it's all evil, money and the materialism, this is all evil, don't give your money to them. I mean, by all means, if you want to give your stuff away to somebody, give it to somebody that requires it. But don't give it to the people that tell you it's not important, it's evil. Give it to, material world is evil. Give me your material stuff, and then you won't have to deal with it. Do not give it to them. Okay, I hold the same philosophy where it comes to these registered charities. Now, charity, I absolutely agree with. Without a shadow of a doubt, I agree with charity. But the reason I don't personally give to registered charities is because the best I've heard is that 30% of the dollar you give them goes to the actual charity. The rest gets eaten by admin costs. Okay, so when I'm giving charity, I go, okay, this is how much money I've got to work with for charity. So this is who I'm giving it to, but I'll give it directly to somebody that requires it. Okay, or that I feel requires it. Now, it's not for a tax deduction. It's not for some sort of accolade. It is simply because that's the way I operate. This doesn't make it the best way. It makes it my way. And like I said, my method is not the only one. My method is simply the only one I personally use. Okay, and when I'm talking about success, I'm the only person on the planet that can be successful for you is you. All the tools in the world are useless if you don't pick them up and use them. Now, I keep these to the half-hour mark for a reason. So, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share the daylights out of it. Okay, and I will be back tomorrow to talk to you again. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.